All right, welcome back. Let's get back to it. So we're about 6 days into our training montage. The only person we're missing is Ardreth. We'll get him when he joins the session tonight, hopefully. The group that has went out to the North Ranches is back in town. So there's still 4 days left in this 10-day. And Greybeard, as you're walking through town, you're probably heading back down to the Tribor Arms, which is your favorite watering hole at this point. And a kind of nondescript human kind of sidles up alongside you. And when you kind of give him the up and down look, you notice a symbol right away that you recognize. And he kind of gives you the nod, and he mentions to you pretty quietly, so that really not too many people can hear. Someone would like to talk to you, and then he kind of angles off.
Right then, and I follow along.
Yeah, you just leave the group right away. You and Ian, or
If the job's
you make it
done,
obvious or not?
I won't snub Ian if she follows along, but at some point I may tell her to like hang back.
Okay. And let me get the right person here. Okay, yeah. All right, so the place that you see that person walking into, you guys were coming in from the North Road, kind of you passed the 6 windows, and you were in town, but then you see him walk back to the north. Maybe I'll just draw it on the map so you can see for just a second here. And it sure... There you go. So he walks back up above the Western Caravan Campground, passes a couple of farms, and then he's moving over to the Tribor Travelers, and he kind of leans up against the door and just gives a nod for you to go in.
I forgot I'm pushed to talk. Sorry. At that point, that's where GB holds up a big dwarfy finger, like, one moment, I'll be right back, and lumps off into the building.
I give you a meaningful look as you tell me to hang back, sort of saying, like, if shit gets real in there, just say something, make a noise, and I'll be there.
I love how characters are like psychic. We've hung out enough. We have these looks that we can convey messages. So yeah, GB gives you a big smile, like, oh yeah.
All right, and yeah, you walk into this business and you recognize this as the Tribor Travelers, and basically this is a place where merchants can come and hire personnel and vehicles that can either go travel from Tribor to somewhere else. A lot of times they can even get some hired hands here. And sitting at a desk when you go in is a shrewd and immaculately dressed businessman. And you know him as the owner of the place. And when he sees you come in, you see that he is prominently displaying the Zentarum symbol. It's like right out in the open. He's not hiding it like you've seen other people do. He is missing an eye, and he has a big red eye patch that's emblazoned with the black serpent symbol of the Zentarum. So he's clearly not hiding his affiliation. And you can see several just bodyguards within the room. And you also see another kind of suave bodyguard that appears to be a male half-elf who kind of stands in the corner and keeps an eye on you as you walk in. And the man at the desk kind of looks up and he sees you walk in and he kind of says, Greybeard, I assume.
So the bodyguard who's like eyeballing me, I take my great axe in, Babe Ruth kind of fashion, like swinging for the fences, and I just kind of point it at him and grin like, someday, yeah, me and you. And then I'm like, yeah, that's me. Pleased to meet you. And I put out my paw.
Yeah, he doesn't take it at all, and he motions to like a chair, which is a little bit bigger than you are, but obviously serviceable, and he waits for you to sit down. And he says, I've received word from our contacts, and they sent this message to you. And he has like an envelope that has a small message, and it's actually a pretty small, it looks like it's been rolled up, and it's probably been attached to a bird of some sort, or something that's been in kind of like a tube and has been sent, because you can kind of see the curl to it. And then you can read common, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and he kind of hands it to you, and as you look at it, you're pretty sure it hasn't been opened. So he's just passing this message on. But he's looking at you expectantly, because it's come obviously from your organization at this point. And so he kind of waits for you to open it and read it.
I don't even take offense at him not shaking my hand. It makes me smile, and I then sit down and do my best to like focus in and out at the slip of paper and read it.
Yeah, scrawled on it, it says a reminder to a reminder to you to make sure you pass along any information to Erlam, and the name Erlam, and you can tell that's the person you're talking to here. And also, we've picked up several instances of somebody's going around and asking for your whereabouts in Nightstone and in Waterdeep. And as whoever it is seems intent on finding where you are, we send this letter to make sure you use caution wherever you might be at this point. And you could tell that this letter's probably traveled a few places, because they weren't quite sure where you were, but it's went from one contact to another, as they kind of knew a general direction of where you were going, but they didn't know exactly where you were. And then Erlam kind of, you don't have to read it out loud or anything, but he's kind of watching your eyes as you get to the end of it. And he says, sorry I haven't introduced myself, but I am Erlam Stockspool. And if you do come across anything here in town, or if you need anything, obviously know that the network is here to support you.
Well, I'm supposed to tell you what I've seen betwixt here and Nightstone. So, and I quickly and with leaving out my own criminal activities, I guess I leave those out. But at some point, I do make mention of, I didn't know that members of our organization were so bold, and I point at his regalia symbols.
Yeah, and he says, yes, many in the Brotherhood seem to hide their affiliations, as, many people do not approve completely of our methods. But I am fully happy to let people know who I work for, and I'm not really concerned on what they think or what they do. The Black Network does what it needs to do.
Oh, I like that. My own reputation quite often gets me in trouble. I should just get a tattoo.
Yes, so it seems. And do you tell him, so you tell him about the travels, do you tell him about the cloud giant portion?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, you notice as you're telling that story, he really writes down, and he even probes you maybe for a few more details, because he's really just interested in having that information. He's writing all that down. And then as you guys have that conversation, he says, you get to the end of it and you're like, all right. And so he does stand and he says, they will see you out. And then several of the goon guys just they don't touch you or anything, but they give you the look of, okay, time to go.
I laugh at him and I pause just an extra second longer so they get a little too close. And then I walk out kind of laughing to myself. Okay. Oh, by the way, one of the details when I was telling the giant story is I'm showing them the peck and claw marks in my clothing, like as proof that I got shredded by giant vultures, and I need some new threads.
Yeah, they were quite interested in the air cultist attack and what they were trying to do. It's obvious he was writing down many notes for that, as in to look further into this cultist that apparently got away. All right, and yeah, you kind of come out, and Ian, you definitely get a real shady vibe from the guys on the porch. You've seen, in various human towns, they give off that kind of thug vibe, and but Greybeard comes out with a smile, kind of a smirk, or even just a soft chuckle as he's leaving, and then you guys meet up on the road. You start heading back to wherever you were going to go after that.
As we're walking, I say, nice friends.
Oh, well, been on the fringe of society most of my life. I've made some contacts.
I can see. Just don't get in too much trouble.
And Greybeard's kind of, yeah, they know better than to mess with me.
All right. So yeah, you guys wander back to wherever you were going, whether it's the inn or back out to camp or whatever. And that was on the 6th day. On the evening of the 6th day, we're going to mention that maybe everybody got together for a dinner again. And you guys, the Tribord Inn Arms seems to be where you guys meet up. So we're going to fade in on a scene here. While you guys are sitting down to have dinner at the Tribord Arms, you've all come together and maybe have been talking about your week thus far. And also, at some point, the group probably needs to talk about what their future plans are, because you've gone, you're trying to figure out what your next move is. You guys really haven't talked about that much. So maybe we start in on that conversation. Who would bring that up as far as, hey, what's our play here? We live in Tribord for the rest of our lives, or what's the group's play? Who would bring that conversation up and get it started?
So Jarral was going to try and have that sort of conversation toward the end of the week, but not with the group.
I guess if it becomes an elephant in the room, old GB will be like, so, this 2-horse town we stay in here, we gonna go hunt some giants.
We definitely need to be investigating more giant activity. It's required.
Same. I've been I've gone from the high forest and to a couple of towns around it. I haven't been up north at all. This is the most north I've been in human territory. I'd like to go further up and see what else I can find about these disturbances. I just don't know what's north.
Still there, Finn?
Yep.
All right. So while you guys are starting to have that conversation, I'm going to break in just a second. Finn, out of the corner, not really the corner of your eye, but you kind of hear something that kind of piques your interest a tiny bit. There appears to be somebody that's pretty drunk, and he's getting a little bit louder. And you hear him say, "No, I'm telling you," and as he takes another drink of his ale, "It was a fire giant. I know what a fire giant looks like. Stop telling me it was a hill giant." And they're kind of having it's a group of people having a conversation, maybe 3 or 4 tables over, and he's being razzed by the rest of the people at the table because they're like, you don't know what a fire giant looks like. You've never even seen one. How could you it's just a hill giant. You just don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, no, I'm telling you, I saw it. And he starts describing again this giant that he saw, and he's slurring his words, and he's definitely pretty drunk, and many of the people in the inn are starting to pick up or hear it, and they're either joking, maybe a few people feel apprehensive, but you kind of hear this starting to get mentioned, and you're hearing it as the group is continuing their talk about what they're going to do.
Oh, that's the setup for my story. All right. Finn will he'll walk up to the bar and he will grab a round of drinks for everybody at the table, and he'll buy one for the table also that the drunk is at, and he will walk back to our table and set everything down and say, I have not told you much of my history since joining you, and that man's outspoken tirade about fire giants and our current situation, looking at all the giant activity. Perhaps I should at least fill you in on what has happened to me in the past. And so he sits down and then begins his tale. This would have happened well over a decade ago, long before I met coffee. I had been traveling with a Waterdeep diplomatic mission to Kerrnel, proudly serving as the voice for Waterdeep's diplomatic missions that had ranged far across Faerun. I had been a rudimentary bard at best, having failed out of the academy at the ripe old age of 35. At that time, though, my choices had been either to join the Waterdeep Home Guard or use what vocal training I had developed at the academy to make a living. The army would have meant a life of guard duty and muddy boots, while the diplomatic course seemed to present a far more exotic future. And such is the folly of youth. I spent the next 20 years being miserable on the back of a horse, riding the continent end to end, making proclamations to and from foreign rulers, sitting through endless courts, traveling along endless roads, and singing countless dirges, while politely laughing at every joke and seducing every princess and queen that could help our cause. Actually, come to think of it, the last part wasn't so bad, but that was only a very small fraction of those 20 years. I digress. As I said, I was acting as Waterdeep's herald on a mission to Kerrnel 10 years ago, and while traveling across that icy road, our party was set upon by a band of fire giants. Calling it a fight would be an injustice. Hopelessly overmatched, the 50 soldiers we traveled with were decimated. Those that weren't killed outright were taken as slaves. I myself was struck by and pinned beneath a boulder that crushed both of my legs. My horror at what had befallen me was quickly redoubled when I realized the fire giants were actually gathering the dead. Rumors and campfire tales of carnivorous giants flooded back to me as the boulder was kicked from my shattered legs and I was tossed into a sack with the rest of my fallen comrades. It was a nightmare made real, and I will spare you the details of that dark journey, but when next I saw the light, the bag had been upended on a kitchen counter, my worst fears having quickly been given into reality. The stew pot across the room was the size of a boat, and I lay in a pile of bodies with a toothless fire giant hag towering over me. The oversized cleaver she held reflected a dull light from the campfire stoves. She cackled something in her barbaric tongue, and I closed my eyes and wept. I lay there helpless, the trauma of my ruined legs made meaningless by the prospect of my impending doom. I began to mentally prepare my spirit for the coming rending. I could barely mumble the beginnings of my mournful requiem. My hopes were only that my gods would hear my pleas and make my death quick. My body was racked with fearful shudders whenever I heard the cleaver come down on the block or felt the pile shift as he pulled another friend from beneath me. As I sang, I gained strength and focus in the familiar task and gradually finished the song with a will. And then I waited. Gradually noticing that the horrific butchery had ceased, I slowly forced my eyes open so that I could witness my fate. The hag stood before me, transfixed, one tear slowly rolling down her greasy face as she gently picked me up and strode forth from the kitchen. She carried me through an immense keep fashioned of black basalt and dimly lit by smoky tallow torches. Her rough handling and jarring gait caused my legs to explode again in pain, but even that was almost tolerable given what felt like an impossible gift of reprieve from that stew pot. Again, youthful folly. I had been saved from a stew and thrown to a wolf. I was presented before a towering giant sitting in a throne of rough-hewn obsidian. This being radiated evil. He wore finely wrought crimson plate armor, adorned with dragon skulls on either shoulder. His bald, sweaty pate tattooed with arcane symbols. I received nothing more than a look of disdain as he gnawed at the end of a leg bone, a human leg bone. And I knew that I lay on the steps before Duke Zalto himself. The hag made gestures at me, which even in my ravaged state, I quickly understood. She wanted me to sing. So I sang. I knew my life hung on every breath. I sang still when my throat went dry. I sang when my voice began to crack with pain. And when I could not force another sound from my body, I simply stared at him, waiting for what judgment would come. Zalto had pursed his greasy lips in contemplation and given my performance a slight nod. The hag quickly gathered me up and deposited me with the other slaves. I was nursed back to health, though both my legs were well beyond repair. I was nothing more than a cripple who could sing. Stunned at even being alive, I spent the next 5 years working where I could in the slaves' kitchen and being hauled out like a caged canary to entertain Zalto and his ilk. I learned to speak their revolting language and sing their cursed songs. And to this day, I count myself as lucky. Many slaves were worked to death in Zalto's mines, and then they would find their way into the stew pot as reward. His cruelty is boundless, and I'm sure I would still be there had it not been for the intervention of a party of adventurers who struck at an opportune moment. They somehow convinced Zalto that a fat, overladen caravan traveled the ice road to the north. With the keep's warriors away to pillage, they managed to kill the remaining giants and free the slaves. I was carried from my cell to the place on the back of a wagon, and along with all the other free slaves, we headed south. I watched Duke Zalto's fortress sink away into the distance from the back of that wagon, and I began to pray that I'd be given the strength to somehow aid those who would fight against such evil. And I tell you this, if there are fire giants nearby, that no good can come of it. Many of my brethren fell at their hands. Gods, I fell at their hands. But now I am a shield of light, an anvil upon which the forces of evil need be demolished. My purpose is clear, and this intersection of fate could be no mistake. I will arm myself for the coming storm, and I suggest that you all do the same. And he drinks his beer.
Greybeard claps, like over the silence, like what?
He was a bard.
You can
Just
take
not a
inspiration.
very good one.
Yeah, mark down inspiration for that. It was good. So a stunned silence from the group at the table.
Except for awkward dwarf clapping.
That's a long time to hold my push to talk button down.
That was awesome.
I say, what do you want our next move to be?
Well, confirmations of the giant's existence would be fantastic, but could only be the ravings of a drunk man in the corner.
I stand. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Jarral is gonna. Where are we, by the way? We're at the half smile.
Nope, you guys are all at the Tribor Arms having dinner.
Oh, okay. So Jarral's going to. He's just gonna get up silently, and he's gonna walk out. And as he walks out, he's just gonna kind of pat Finn on the shoulder a couple times, just in passing. And he's just gonna walk outside.
Okay, I'll follow you up.
Oh, it wasn't. It wasn't an invitation. It was just a kind of what I understand.
A sympathy pat. All right.
Yeah.
I'll go out anyway, check on my lion.
I stand up. And I stand up Greybeard with me, picking him up, and I start walking towards the drunk guy spewing information in his group.
Okay. Yeah, it's a human. Kind of looks like a caravan guard, dressed wise. Definitely well into his cups at this point. Super drunk, slurring his words, and his fellows are kind of just razzing him and teasing him because you just get the impression that they don't believe him, that he's just kind of a blowhard.
I walk up to him and I pass him my beer, which has been untouched, and I say, in true Greybeard fashion, "Hail, friend!" And I put the tankard in his hand, and I say, "Fire giants, you say?"
If any of his friends go to rib him or anything, I give him the Greybeard bad reputation stare, like maybe you should walk away. Yeah, without saying anything.
Yeah, he nearly drops his cup, and he as he looks at you and at Ian. Nobody even notices the dwarf at this point. They're all humans, and they're all sitting there, and they're actually pretty quiet when you walk up. And he kind of looks, and he's like, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, lady. And he just kind of lets it trail out.
I say, well, neither do I. How about let's sit down, and I'd love to hear more about these giants, my fine human sir.
Yeah, and a couple of his buddies kind of stumble to clear a seat, and what's funny to them, and I think you would realize quite quickly, is that they're kind of shocked that an elven woman has come over and talked to them. There's not a lot of elves in this town at all. And it's just kind of they're not sure what to do. One of them moves and lets you sit down next to the guy, and he starts rambling on about this story about how they were out. The caravan was out to the northeast, and while he was ranging, he was sure that he saw this giant, and all these guys keep teasing me because they keep telling me there's only hill giants out there, but he's like, I know what it had to be a fire giant. Hill giants don't have red hair. And they all just kind of still laugh at him a little bit.
I put my hand on his shoulder and I squeeze it a little bit, and I'm like, oh, I believe you, fire giants. I've heard crazier things. What was this fire giant doing?
And again, he kind of gives you he's a really open face at this point because he's obviously so intoxicated he's not able to hide anything from you. You just can tell, he's not holding anything back, and he has this puzzled look of like, but my lady, it was a fire giant. Obviously, the minute I saw it, I ran.
Oh, I'm sure everyone would have done the same. And I look over to his friend, and I look back at him, and I say, was there only one of them?
He said, I only saw one before I turned tail and head back to the caravan.
Up to the northeast, were you far away?
We were about 5 days north.
5 days north, huh? Well, that was very brave of you to see this fire giant and get as close as you did. And bringing back the caravan nice and safely. Very brave of you, sir. And I look over... Oh, go ahead.
You see the look on his face that his brain is thinking, and it's all in like slow motion because of how drunk he is, and you're recognizing it right away. And then it's like this thought dawns in his head that, wait a minute, is she hitting on me? Does she like me? And it's all kind of going on in his head, but it's clearly being written on his face of what he's starting to think.
Oh, I know humans. And as I finish saying this and fake complimenting him, I look over to Greybeard wherever he is standing or sitting, and I stand up and pick up I stand up and I pick up one of the tankards that's on the table. Preferably Greybeard, and I just take a small. I pretend to take a swig of it, and I say, "Well, gentlemen, thank you for regaling me with your tales." And I aggressively grab Greybeard and I walk away.
Yeah, and in as you probably get, are you going back to your table or where are you headed to?
Just away. Away as I can.
Yeah, you're probably 20 feet away, and you hear them. They're like, they just start razzing them like, I think she liked you, and the guy, shut up, and and they're all like, more drinks over here, and they obviously are going to have a whole story about how this elf maiden came and talked to this guy. It's going to be the next story he tells for the next couple weeks, I'm sure.
Our coffee and I guess just coffee. And
yeah, Ardreth probably at that point of the group breaking up maybe started to entertain the tavern. He's been working with the proprietor and it has allowed him to sing his songs, play music, and he pays them. He picks up tips from people and gets paid by the proprietor. So he's probably off now performing. You can hear his music in the background of wherever you're at. Coffee, where's Coffee at once? Jarral's kind of left. Finn's got up to go check on his lion. These two have went over to the table.
Coffee's sitting alone at the old table, realizing that everybody's ditched him with the bill.
Yeah, and there's a server kind of looking at you, stamping her feet like, don't you dare run out on us. I'm
so tempted, just like, if it was Tigray, invisibility be on, and just, gone. So he's gonna wait to get the bill and pay for the meal that everybody ditched on it.
Awesome.
If Coffee's still there, I lead us back to our table. And I sit down, looking away from the group of humans we just spoke to. And I get my serious face back on, or my normal face, I guess. And I look over at Coffee and Greybeard and I say, well, these fire giants seem to be northeast, about 5 days out. Who knows how long it took these humans to come back. What do we want to do with that information? Coffee, you know him the best.
Are you speaking about Finn?
Yeah.
I suggest we prepare to investigate. I'm with Finn on this. Would you be able to track giants in this area?
I could try. I don't know how far out we'd have to get before I find tracks. I don't have any magic that can find them as of yet. I'm starting to think I might need to.
I suspect the tracks would be very large.
Yeah. My worry is that we'd find them before we find their tracks. Not the most subtle of creatures, I've heard.
Right, so listening to Finn and a hag and a giant cleaver and all that, I'm never one to run from a fight, but we just got our butts handed to us by an Oni. You think we're ready for fire giants?
Prepared and stealthy, I would say yes.
I wouldn't even necessarily say we approach them head on. As long as we know where they are, we have the advantage. We could come back with reinforcements if needed. I'm sure the Lord Protector would have special interest in fire giants near her town.
All right, let's do it.
So, tomorrow, when we meet again? Or do we want a day to prepare? I know me and Greybeard just got back. I don't know what's really been going on.
Are you saying 5 days out and 5 days back for this trip?
I think so. If these humans are even a bit worthy of their information.
Definitely think we'd need a day to prepare.
I would agree. Get our affairs in order. Get some supplies to go.
Get our affairs in order.
Yeah,
Write some wills.
yeah, a couple of wills.
Pretty much.
My 20 copper goes to
Greybeard.
Greybeard. Yeah.
Alright. Dan, I've got once I go outside, I've got 2 things that I would like to do.
Okay.
I would like
Yeah,
to
let's fade out from that scene as far as inside the inn. The camera will flash out, and yeah, we'll focus back in on Finn heading out the door.
I'd just like to go up to the lion's share, and I'm going to purchase a lance and another 20 arrows.
Okay. Let me grab the price guide somewhere around here.
I got it. It's listing lances as 10 gold.
Yeah, so make a persuasion roll. We'll see if he's able to sell it to you for that. You're talking to Nerth there. Bad
Gonna cost
persuasion
you.
roll. So it looks like the lance is going to cost you 12 gold, as it's the only one he has in stock, and so he's selling it a little bit extra money. And then the
12
arrows.
for this,
are
you
the
must be
normal.
mad, but I'll take it.
Yeah. You guys haggle and talk it over, but he's obviously good at haggling also. And yeah, so for 12 gold, you can pick up a lance. You can write that down in your character sheet, and then we'll have to figure out the stats for that. I don't think I've used a lance in the game before, but
I've got it right here.
Is it
It's
cool?
1 die 12 piercing
Nice.
with
Okay.
reach. And then after that,
arrows would just be normal price.
then I want to go talk to the Rothra.
Yeah, it would be 1 gold for 20 normal arrows, regular quality.
Got it.
Okay, and that's at the lion's share. So you get done talking to Nerth, and I assume store the lance on the lion.
Just lean it up against the wall there. Tell Nod to watch it.
All right, yeah, and Duranthra is at her desk as usual, still going over correspondence, as you are shown in by one of her guards. And she just kind of absently waves to her seat, and she says, "You guys come in here enough. I should hire you as my assistant."
Say
He continues to pour over.
you have
her
rumors of
paperwork.
fire giants to your north. I'm not gonna small talk at all.
Yeah, and she kind of stops what she's doing and looks at you, and she says, "Fire giants? I've got no reports of fire giants."
I just heard a rumor in the inn that you cannot not take seriously.
Well, we get lots of rumors, but I certainly don't take anything for granted. And she starts shuffling in her papers. Let me see where I had it. Yeah, she pulls out some papers, and she's I'm not sure what that might be, but I sent the 12 to the southeast. There apparently was an orc attack to the south, but I've got scouts out in most directions, and none of them have come back with any fire giant talk, or any of the hill giants don't seem to be within many days of here.
You have caravan guard right now in Tribor Inn telling us he saw one.
And she notes it down, and she says, well, I'll definitely talk with this gentleman. Can you describe him so I may seek him out in the morning?
Yeah, tell her what
Yeah.
he looks like.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and she writes it down and takes the information. And she says, I will look into this.
She knows Harper, right?
Yeah, she's a Harper, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I gave her the high sign the first time we met here, right? So
Yes.
is there nothing from the Harpers?
No.
For me?
And she actually genuinely looks surprised that she doesn't know that there's anything within days of here, because she does have scouts and things out searching in all directions to keep an eye on what's going on.
Well, what would you have of me? My companions and I are in the town for the foreseeable future.
She says, well, I'll know more once I talk to him, and I'll definitely get the location and send riders out in the morning to see if we can figure out the truth to this, or if it's just boastful talk in an inn.
Okay. Very well.
And she thanks you for bringing the information. And she's definitely, every time you've actually come to meet her, she's been working at that desk. So she's definitely a workaholic type person. And you can tell there's lots of missives coming in from lots of different areas. She has, a map of the North Ranches. And there's even the pin, she kind of has a pin in it where you can kind of see as you're walking out that the report is showing, several orc attacks in the southeast. And you kind of get an idea of where that's at and what's being attacked at the moment.
Okay.
All right. And then as you head out, we'll fade out from there. Does anybody else have anything else they would like to be doing?
PB, did we have a scene?
Yeah. We could do it now. Back when we were traveling on our 6-day journey, I wanted to have a conversation with Greybeard. So let's just imagine.
Yeah, let's flash back to that. Maybe it's on the way back.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay.
So we do the sporing task, we come back, and I look over to Greybeard, who's matching my pace, so very surprisingly to me. And I look over, I guess slightly down. I don't know how tall you are, Greybeard.
4'9". I'm tall. I played basketball as a dwarf.
Well, I look down at Greybeard keeping pace with me. And as we walk there silently together, I say, so it's been some interesting weeks we've had together since Nightstone. Several things have happened. Anything, everything okay with you?
And I think maybe what prompted her asking is Greybeard has had these, he gets that 1,000-yard stare sometimes, and usually he's kind of a goofball, and but yeah, sometimes there's just a weight on his shoulders, and I guess this must have been one of those melancholy moments, and I guess he would kind of say something along the lines of, Ardreth bugs me.
Ardreth? What about the half-elf?
Well, the giant just brings him back to life. Who does he think he is? He's just a bard.
We all have our paths and journeys in this life. I guess his line wasn't broken yet.
Well, why don't we just take the sky tower down and get Tigray back.
And as he says this, like almost like Ian has like an epiphany, like an oh, that's what's been happening. And I say, Tigray. That's someone I've chosen not to really think about these past few weeks. It's a hard thing, Greybeard. Have you ever lost anyone before?
Yeah, I've lost plenty, but yeah.
Well, when I turned my first century, I had just experienced a loss, so I was going through a difficult point in life. But I went off on my first job as captain of the guard, and we were gonna go just scope out this new ruin that had appeared after a storm. And the leaders of the guard never really liked me and my brother. For some bias or another, never thought we were good enough at what we did. So they were attempting to throw me off by throwing both my brother and my father under my leadership. So I sent my brother off to another group to scout the other area, and my father was in mine. And as we went into one of the rooms, one of the cracks in the side of the building, it wasn't very stable. It's an old elvish ruin, and part of the floor we were on crumbled beneath us, separating half of our group on one side and half on the other. Very quickly we discovered that there was a problem. There was shuffling, more shuffling than the people that fell to the other side. We very quickly heard screams from the other side, and my father yelling orders, getting people out as we scrambled to get to the other side, trying to find some way to get to them through the rubble, through a different passage. I don't know, I really didn't care. And so by the time we managed to find a way in through one of the hallways outside, we found almost everyone safe and outside, but they were all giving me a look. All giving me a look you don't ever want to see. And none of them said a word to me. And so I went in that room and I saw a room full of dead, of the undead, now once again dead. One of the other guards and my father at the door, dead also. He managed to get everyone out and block the door, barricade him, and took down as many as he could before he went down. And so we came back carrying him. I did. I carried him back to the village on my first mission, and they called it a success, you know? We went in, we cleared it when we had minimal losses, but you know, one of them was my father. So I tried bargain. Oh, go ahead.
GB at that point, you know, kind of pokes you where your bear tattoo is and says, "But you got your brother out alive."
Yeah, but I couldn't keep him safe. And trust me, I bargained with every god I could think of I wanted him back, you know? My mother had died earlier on. All I had was my dad, the guy who encouraged us always to be our best, to that no matter what our eyes were, no matter that we were twins, no matter what stupid superstitions anyone had, that we earned everything we worked for, no matter what anyone else said. And the irony is that he was right, because after that mission, no one ever questioned my leadership again. But that didn't stop me from bargaining with every god, trying to find any way to get him back. Me and my brother. So, eventually, you learn that sometimes life begins and life ends. And for sometimes it's just some people's time to go. And sometimes they don't want to come back. Sometimes they've finished their journey. I think it was my brother who tried to knock it into my head enough times, who said that our father would be proud of me. Even at that outcome, he would be proud of me. And Greybeard, I think it's safe to say that Tigray would be proud of what you did, what you decided to do to try and save Finn and that dwarf. Tigray died a good death. He fought for us to get out alive, for you to take out our comrades and to save them. And he may have fallen, and we may not be able to bring him back. But that might be just what he wanted.
Greybeard takes a big, breath. He's watery-eyed, and he just kind of gives you a hug. It's kind of a big crushy hug, and the fact that he only comes up to your waist,
yeah,
it's odd. And he says, I've lost, and there's times I still think I can hear him talking to me. So I don't know if he's really gone or not. And I get confused. But I'll try. And he stops, lets go of the hug, and then he punches you in the hip. And he's like, let's get back to town. I need some mead.
I say, when we aren't being attacked by giants or prophecies being thrust upon us, remind me to find you some good Fey wine. I trust you will never have had anything like it. It's that stuff that will make you forget yourself for a few months. And I just keep walking.
I smile, and I let her think she's walking faster than me, and then I catch up and keep pace.
Nice. And we'll fade out from that scene. Awesome. Both of you can have inspirations. Good scene. Nice.